Hello, hello, hello. This is Zach with JTNS. Going to talk about holding an effective job briefing this month. We'll go ahead and dive right on in, shall we? I like this saying right here. Of course, in the past I've said, proper planning prevents poor performance thing, and I agree with that. But old Ben Franklin, right? I'd say one of the granddaddies of line work. Anybody flying a kite in a, lightning storm, that's got to be one of our fellas. But he's got a good thing right there. If you fail to plan, well, obviously you're planning to fail. Whole reasoning behind a job brief is so that everybody actually gets on board, right? Whether you call it a job brief, a pre-job, a tailboard, a tailgate, whatever you want to call it, it's a good opportunity for everybody to get there, actually have a conversation about what's going on, get on the same page, know where they're at, what the plan is. Also, we have a tendency to actually run and gun a lot of times. Take the time, slow down, talk this stuff over. All this is for is to make sure that everybody, that in the event of something going on also, that everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. So, I got 2 slides here. First one is covering OSHA. One thing I want you to know that OSHA says that 5 things have to be on there. Hazards associated with the job, the work procedures, energy source control, special precautions, and PPE, right? Once again, you see that word shall, which means in OSHA terminology, it's got to be done. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. Has to be done. But one thing I want to call your attention to is it says it's got to be done, but typically with a lot of places it's, hey, foreman always takes care of that. OSHA doesn't say the foreman. OSHA says employee in charge, meaning that you could theoretically, right, have a couple of apprentices that you send over to the side of the road somewhere to pick up some pieces of broke pole from last night. Well, them 2 fellas get out there, they don't park far enough off the road, there's a fender bender or something like that. They're going to be standing there looking at each other. Where's the job brief? Because them investigators and everybody else is going to see that paperwork. Well, here's the thing about it. 2 apprentices are going to stand there sort of looking at each other. That's why OSHA specifically says employee in charge versus lead lineman foreman. Even if you have 2 apprentices there, one of them technically is the employee in charge. So one of them should be doing a job brief. So just FYI, remember that. That's why it doesn't specifically say foreman, lead lineman, employee in charge. Now, taking it off from OSHA, going into the APPA safety manual, they not only add on another part to what's got to be covered in the job brief, but they also put in language saying it's got to be documented. I don't know if y'all caught that on the previous slide, but OSHA, technically, you can document it or you can't. You can do a verbal job briefing, and that suffices. Recommendation from us, make sure it's documented. Whether it be on paper, whether it be on an app, make sure it's documented. That way you have physical, tangible evidence that this actually happened. Alright, so the other thing that APPA added on was the emergency response information, and we'll cover that in a further slide. So, talking about hazards, right? Of course, doing line work, well, electricity is quite a bit hazardous to our health. We know that. So, of course, we talk about that stuff, but don't forget the small things. Don't forget if you're changing poles out, is it in a swag or is it on top of the hill? Is it a little tighter? Is it a little heavier? Traffic's always a big issue. And if you were able to kill it out, of course, bag feeds and everything like that. So there's several things to be talked about under the hazards portion of this. So make sure you actually do a thorough job, identify what's out there, what can hurt you, what can bite you in the butt, talk about it. Work procedures is something as simple as saying, hey, is it overhead, is it underground, are we setting a pole, we're going to have a digger, we're going to have a bucket, we're going to have to climb this. Making sure that everybody knows what part they're going to play in the job coming up. Even getting into the nuances of switching orders and how they're wrote up, and is this the latest and greatest edition, right, and that kind of stuff. So the work procedure is something as simple as how we're actually going to conduct the job, what we're going to do to finish the job, and where you actually play that part, right? Energy source controls, of course, us working around electricity. Of course, that energy right there, everybody out there knows the job can go quicker, easier, less wear and tear, whole 9 yards if we're able to kill it out. That would be awesome. If we could do that every go around, man, life would be so much simpler for us. That being said, that also entails making sure that if you are able to de-energize it, well, that means that you also need to test and ground and tag it and do all the appropriate steps that just killing it out means, right? Don't just say, yeah, we killed it out, we're good to go. It's not as simple as dropping a cutout or dropping a stinger, right? Make sure you completely isolate it, test it, ground it, and put your tags on it. The other side of that coin, of course, we make the big boy bucks because we can't always kill it out. We got to work it hot, work it energized. Sounds good. That's why we get paid the money we get paid. You need to also, that also brings in a lot of other things. Have we got the rubber goods? Have we got a one shot or a hotline tag? Have you tested your gloves today? Have you got your FR on? All that stuff gets folded into that aspect of it. So make sure that's talked about, how you're actually doing what you're doing and what steps you have taken to protect yourself from that hazardous energy source. Special precautions is just things that don't fall into one of the other categories pretty much. First aid, AED, for example, right? Even though, we have to be first aid, CPR, AED trained, an AED is not technically part of the kit. It's great to have, and I firmly believe it should be a necessity. Everybody should have one. That right there being said, if you do have them, you do a monthly check, something like that, make sure it's actually checked. Lights blinking, the batteries are good. Don't just sign off the back of it and close the bin door. Make sure you have it available. I personally think they need to be in a bucket truck versus a foreman's truck, simply because when the bucket's in the air, you're around hot stuff probably, right? Foreman might be getting material somewhere like that, so have it available where you're actually working out. Another thing that I think we do a little bit of a poor job on is toting that extra set of climbing tools. It's midnight, you're already toting a set of climbing tools, and the guy helping you has got the wire and the sleeves and a hoist and a hand line, and he's already dragging enough stuff out. Why drag another set of climbing tools? Well, this stuff right here could be viewed as a car insurance policy or a home insurance policy, right? Those big ticket items right there, you want to have insurance to replace that stuff. You don't ever have to want to use it, but you pay for it every month. Same thing here. The time you don't tote it out there is the time you're going to need it. And when we're talking about time, it is a necessity to get that guy down or off that pole and get them chest compressions and that AED going, because that time means every second that brain or those organs are starved of oxygen, bad things occur. So it's more important than ever to actually have that stuff available and handy. All right, so just think that, keep that in the back of your mind when you're out there working like that. Of course, PPE, whether it be FR, safety glasses, hard hat. Story, a buddy of mine, working out in West Texas, part of the PPE kit that he got issued was snake chaps, because the company's responsibility to identify those hazards and protect you from the known hazards, right? So here's the thing about it. They said, hey, we got guys that have a possibility to get snake bit out there, because there's a lot of them evidently. That's part of the get up that they get issued to them. One of the key components about PPE is that first letter, that first P, which is personal. The onus is on you, right? You need to actually take the responsibility and use the stuff that has been given to you. The safety man, the boss man, is not going to be sitting over your shoulder going, hey, boo-boo, did you put that on? Hey, you got your FR? Hey, you got your safety glasses? That's not on them to do that. You're grown up. You know what you should be doing. You've been trained to do it properly. Actually do it properly, right? This stuff right here, every piece of this you put on protects you from something going wrong. And that's what really, at the end of the day, all this is about. If something goes wrong, you want to make sure to have every single layer of protection you can have. But it's on you to actually use those things when you know you're supposed to. Last part is what APPA added, the emergency response procedures. I think it's a good thing, great thing actually, because when an incident does occur, that adrenaline is going to kick in, and that logical thinking brain is going to sort of, be put on the back burner, and that muscle memory brain is going to kick in. I think it's a good idea, whether you do it at like the APPA says, at every job brief, or if you adhere to the OSHA thing, do this at least once a week, or once a month, or once a year. With the typical crew you work with, that's probably who you typically work with every day. At least have a plan A, right? Hey, if something goes on, I'm calling 911, you're doing a mayday, you're getting first aid CPR kicking. You have that said, because when that happens, everybody's going to be running around, getting him down, getting him out of the bucket, something's going on, compressions, and then look at each other 2 or 3 minutes into it and be like, I thought you were going to call. So it's a good idea to have a plan A. Hey, who's calling 911, who's doing this, who's doing that. I'll also say it's probably a good idea to have a plan B, because typically the response I hear is, oh, well, the foreman's going to do that. Awesome, great idea, no problem with that. The only issue comes in is when the foreman is the one that possibly goes down with heat stroke or a heart attack or something like that. So you sort of need to have a plan B, right? To where the second in command takes over, runs with it, and says, hey, I'm doing this now, you're doing this now, you're doing this now, right? So that's a good thing to talk about, get it out in the open, converse about it. Oh, sorry. All right, so how many are required? Well, obviously, the one at the beginning of each job, right? If you're working by yourself, typically you don't have to do one on the side of the road by yourself. You can, think it through, talk it through. If you want to write it down, awesome, go for it. It'd be a great thing. But when it comes to each job, they typically have their own work orders, their different addresses, and typically go from hanging a pot and pulling a service to changing a pole or pulling underground in. So each job has its own little different thing that we have to talk about. I think you need to, or make sure you do one at the beginning of each job that you actually do. Of course, why do we have job briefing? What does it do for us, right? It's been shown, it's been proven in studies, it has actually helped reduce accidents. It's actually helped jobs go quicker, more efficient. Everybody's on the same page, working as the same team. That's what this stuff is for. Not to mention the whole, cover your behind kind of thing, to if something does ever go on and this is a piece of paper that is now a, court document, you want to have it documented. You want to have it on there saying, yes, we did this, yes, we talked about this, all right? So it does a lot of things, and that's one of the reasons why we have these job briefs. It needs to be done at the location of the job, not at the warehouse, not at the pole pile, not at the gas station getting a biscuit. It needs to be done at the location of the job, and everybody should be there. Not, you go ahead and get 4 out of 5 guys doing it, and the last guy shows up because he was late for, getting a biscuit this morning or something. Everybody needs to be there. Everybody needs to understand their part. Talk about everything out there that can get a hold of you, and make sure everybody has what they're supposed to have. Hey, is the sticks tested? Or is, when's the last time the bucket liner was tested? All that kind of stuff comes into play. Have we got our first aid kits and our AED? All that stuff comes into play, and it needs to be done before you actually start working. Having a successful job brief, don't look at it like this is something like a check in a box, right? It needs to be something that actually everybody participates in. It's not something to gripe about. It's not something just this mundane thing we have to do, and hopefully you're not doing, you crack the window and hand a piece of paper and say, hey, sign this. Hopefully everybody actually gets together, talks about it, goes over this stuff. It's only going to help you at the end of the day. I know it's something that a lot of the older guys, and I'm going to challenge y'all, don't look at it like these apprentices or young guys are questioning you because they're trying to undermine you, trying to make you look goofy, anything like that. If somebody's asking a question, use it as an opportunity to build them up, not tear them down, right? Use it as an opportunity to teach, to help pass on what you're doing, help pass on the right kind of thing, right? So take that opportunity to teach, not to, belittle kind of thing. So to button this up for this month, honestly, job briefing is supposed to be there for a genuine conversation. Shouldn't be a rubber stamp kind of deal. It should be there so everybody is on the same page, working as a team, pulling in the same direction. I'd be safe to say that most of the guys out there work on the same crews with the same guys every day. Typically, they're most of your friends, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we want to take care of one another, and this is part of those tools right here. You should view a job brief as a tool, just like a wrench or a hammer or anything else. View it as a tool, and that way this thing that you're using can help your job, help your company, help your crew, and help you get home at the end of the day. Not to mention, you may not think it, being a lineman, being a foreman, but everybody around you is watching you and learning from you. Whether they're learning the right thing or the wrong thing, they're learning. I'd be safe to say that you do line work the way that you were showed by somebody. That's, at the end of the day, that's what's happening with all these younger guys coming into the business. Whether your company, whether your crew is going to be safe and do the right thing is totally on you, because you're setting the example. Don't rubber stamp this stuff. Don't just check in a box, pass it out, and be done with it. Use it as a tool so everybody can get on the same page, pull in the same direction. All right, that's what we've got this month for job briefing. Greatly appreciate y'all's time. Hope y'all have a wonderful day. Stay safe.